Hey, what is up YouTube, and welcome back to episode 8 of the Let's Play Satisfactory. Now in the last episode, we had just unlocked the tier 5 and tier 6 sets of milestones in the hub, and going over those again today, it looked like our next goal was getting some oil. We need oil to produce plastic and other related items to unlock the next upgrades. Now to unlock oil, we need to start producing motors. And motors are rather simple to make. The recipe only requires stators and rotors, both of which we were already manufacturing in the base. And so I only had to set up an additional assembler and connect the input lines, and voila, we were now making motors. However, we will have to come back to this later because the process is really slow and we will need many more motors moving on. And so with the components now in hand, I went back to the hub and unlocked the oil processing milestones, and then immediately I set out to find some oil. And so I started the scan, and unfortunately it turned out that the closest node was actually more than 2 kilometers away. And so I gathered as many components I could fit in my inventory, and I started to build a hypertube going towards the oil node. Now, whilst I was building my hypertube line going towards the oil node, I stumbled upon several interesting things. Just a few hundred meters behind my base, I found another crashed ship, and to unlock this one I needed something called quickwire, which we don't have at the moment. So I just marked the location with a beacon and moved on. At some point later on I came across a beautiful lagoon where I found another crashed ship guarded by some aliens. So I fought off the aliens and investigated the crash site. And this wreckage only required power to unlock, and since I was bringing some power with me to set up the hypertube, I was able to immediately unlock this ship and pick up the hard drive inside. Now I needed to cross this lagoon to get to the oil, and it turns out that you cannot build when you are underwater, so I had to be a bit creative to get my hypertube across this small lake. And I did so by building a tower in the water, then swimming up to the tower, climbing on top of it, and then whilst I was up on the tower I placed some foundations block and built the hypertube support onto the foundations block. And that way I managed to cross the lagoon. And also another thing to note is whilst I was building the tube, I also made sure to set up some exit and entry points every so often, so that if I ever had to come back here, I could enter the tube very easily. Now, some ways beyond the lagoon, I then arrived to a beach where I found a third crashed ship. This one was very well guarded by some bees and one of those big fire-spitting aliens. Now this fight was a bit harder, but I managed to take out the alien and the bees, and to my surprise, this ship didn't require anything to unlock, so I could just take the hard drive and leave. I also found a small cave really close to this, and it had a power slug guarded by quite a few bees, but again, I fought them off and collected the slug. Unfortunately, at this point I ran out of materials and had to run back to the base to gather some more supplies, and when I came back it was just 100 more meters or so to get to some sort of island, which was really close to a beautiful waterfall, and the oil nodes were just there on the island. And again I had to fight off some aliens. Now, after fighting off the aliens, I had to go back to base once more to grab resources to build the oil extractors and the pipeline. And so here I am building the extractor, and I made sure to add a junction right in front of it because one extractor can pump, in this case, 120 cubic meters of oil a minute, and a pipeline can carry much more. A pipeline can carry 300 cubic meters a minute. And so if I need to, I can still connect more extractor to this existing pipeline and have a bigger throughput of oil this way. And every so often I also made sure to set up some electric pumps to make sure that the fluid would be pumped all the way back to base. Now on my way back, I struggled again around the lagoon area building the pipeline, but in the end I managed to bring the oil back all the way back to base. Alright guys, so when I got back to base, I researched both hard drives in the MAM, and from the first hard drive I got the option to pick between those 3 recipes. Now looking at those 3 recipes, none of them looked that particularly interesting to me. We are producing enough iron at the moment, and I'm not really interested in concrete, so that's why I picked the option for the alternative recipe for the copper. Now from the second hard drive, the options were much more interesting, and that is because there is a recipe to make fabric. Now we haven't touched onto fabric just yet, and that is because fabric is actually unlocked in the MAM in the mycelia section, the section dedicated to the mushrooms. And so when you get access to fabric, you can only craft it by hand using the mushrooms and some biomass. And by getting access to the recipe via the hard drive, this allows us to automate the process of making fabric. And fabric is used to make parachutes, for example, which we'll get into in just a minute. But yeah, I was pretty happy about finding this recipe. This is a pretty useful one to me. Okay guys, so let's have a look here. So the parachutes are made here in the equipment workshop with fabric and some cable, and by crafting them you get 5 out of it, and these are like consumable, right? It's not a single use item. I mean, it is a single use item. It's not like you craft one and you have one forever, and that is a bit annoying, and here is why. So let me show you how it works. So let's hop into this hypertube so I get launched in the air. And now to use a parachute I have to press space, and it's pretty cool, right? You can glide, you can kind of maneuver around a little bit to go wherever you want, but then once you use it, it's gone, and that is a bit annoying, and here is why. So I have this vertical base, and when I am hopping around my base here and there, there you go, as you can see I just used one of my parachutes just by hopping on above the conveyor belt. And that's the annoying part, is I keep jumping around the base here and then, going up, going down, and every time I accidentally press space to hop onto my conveyor belts I end up using a parachute. And so in my opinion it would be much more useful if it wasn't a single use item, but it is what it is. It is a cool feature, and having the possibility to automate it now means I'll be using them much more in the future. Alright guys, so I believe it's time for me to stop talking for a minute and go into a time-lapse building mode for me to build the foundations for my oil processing factory, which I'll be building on top of this surface over here. So it will be separated from this main base, and that's where we'll be processing the oil. Alright guys, so here we are on top of the new base extension, this new platform that I built, and here is where I set up the oil refineries. So what's happening, oh, and I've also set up a hypertube going from one side to the other side here, and also hypertube to go down too, so that I don't take full damage from falling off. So I did cut up the pipe over here, and I had to set up two pumps because one pump can only pump 20 meters high, and this was just above 20 meters, so I had to add two pumps in order to get the oil all the way up here. And then what I'm doing is we have all these refineries set up here on the side, and so I only connected two for plastic, and then those in the middle I'm not using at the moment, and then we have those two here that are producing the rubber. Now the inconvenience here with the oil is that when you produce components, for example the plastic or the rubber, it also produces this heavy oil residue, and it's in form of a liquid, and you have to do something with it, because if you just leave it here in the pipes, it clogs up the system, and then the refinery doesn't produce anything anymore. So here on the other side of the refinery, as you can see, let's hop onto this here, there are two outputs, one for the component that's being made, in this case here plastic, and one here for the oil residue. And so what I'm doing with the oil residue is all the refineries are connected together, because these guys, the rubber refinery also produce the same oil residue, so everything is connected together, and then I'm pumping those into some other refineries that are set up to produce petroleum coke. And let's have a look here. So we don't really need petroleum coke, but it's the only thing that we can make out of this oil residue at the moment. And yes, so we are not using this petroleum coke for anything at the moment, and we have to do something with it, otherwise again the system is clogged and we won't be producing any plastic. So what I'm doing here is I'm simply piping this petroleum coke into this awesome sink in order to get some points for coupons. Okay, then now that we have the plastic and the rubber that we needed for the first upgrade in the hub, we can actually go back to the hub and unlock the next upgrade. Okay, and here we are in the hub, and the next milestone that we can unlock is the industrial manufacturing, which will give us access to some new components and trucks. Oops, excuse me. Trucks which are like tractors, but they have a much bigger inventory slot. Alright, so let's go ahead and unlock this.
Milestone reached. The manufacturer increases production complexity. A critical look at production line logistics and efficiency is recommended during integration. The truck allows for increased efficiency in transportation, automated or otherwise. New project parts enable progress to the next phase.
Okay, so then let's have a look here. So the next upgrade here in this tier of the hub milestone is the alternative fluid transport, and to unlock this we need heavy modular frames. And if you look here, the modular frames need 4 components to craft, and that's why we need this manufacturer for. This can actually craft those type of components. Alright guys, so here we are back on this side of the base, and I've placed down one of those manufacturing machines. And it's kind of funny because in order to build one of those manufacturer, you need 10 of those heavy modular frames. So you need the components in order to build the machine that will build your components, which is pretty funny. But yeah, here it is. So this guy has the 4 inputs, and I've connected all my my conveyor belts here from the factory producing the components directly into this manufacturer. And now we are making these heavy modular frames, albeit very slowly, but we now have all the components needed to unlock the next milestone in the hub. So let me hop down here, and let's go here in the hub, and we can now get access to the alternative fluid transport. So let's go ahead and unlock this.
Milestone reached. Fluids can now be packaged to allow for transportation via vehicle and conveyor belts. Additionally, highly improved biofuel can now be produced.
Highly improved biofuel. I wasn't paying attention to that. Packaged liquid biofuel. Liquid biofuel can be used to generate power or packaged to be used as fuel for vehicle. Okay, and what do you need for liquid biofuel? Oh, it's made out of biofuel, and we have an alternative recipe here to make some out of the... Oh yeah. Okay. Alright guys, so here we are. We've made a lot of progress in this episode. I'm pretty happy about that. But unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you today. So if you have any comments or tips regarding this episode, please let me know in the comment section. And in any case, I'll see you soon in the next episode. Bye bye.